They say dancing is dreaming with your feet. A young man who always believed he was destined for the stage, we are today celebrating as an African ambassador who has gone to show the world the validity of a boy's dreams who grew up on the dusty streets of northern Pretoria. Welcome to Bophelong. My name is Rifil Wemwilwa, and today I'm daring you to dream so big that your dreams scare you as you watch the story of dancer extraordinaire Paul Mojaji.
From very humble beginnings and dusty streets in Hammanskraal, a brother, a son, a friend, a dancer, a choreographer and a businessman recognized internationally, simply believed in himself and everything else fell into place because of the fire and passion that was burning inside him.
Dancing for me means freedom. That's what it does. And it's freed me in more ways than one. Like, I look at my life today and I know that I owe everything I have to dancing.
Most people realize their passion at a very tender age. Some carry it through and turn it into a career, while some turn it into a hobby. Paul Mojaji is because of his passion.
I know that since I was a kid, I was a dancing kid. I remember that you know, I look at kids today, like at family stuff will try and get up and dance and that kind of thing. And you'll find that certain of my nieces and nephews would be a bit shy to actually dance, you know? And for me, it's so interesting that even as a young child, I was always keen to dance, you know, so I've been dancing all my life.
Paul is living proof that stars can come from communities with dusty streets. Those very same stars go out to the big world and shine bright.
When I was born, my mom and my dad lived in a tin house, literally. And throughout my life, I've literally seen my dad build his life from a tin house to a two-bedroom house to, you know, what one could consider a very comfortable home for all of us.
Even though at first his mother didn't support the dancing because she didn't see it as a career, his father realized that dancing is his son's happy place.
And I was fortunate in that my dad was very supportive, and I think part of it had to do with the fact that my family knew that there was something special there.
Paul explains that it's the harsh conditions he saw at home that encouraged him to push even further. Role models can come from humble beginnings too.
I saw my dad literally struggle so much, and my family struggled so much during that time, to a point where we literally had to drive or walk rather, even at the time, to my granny's house, my granddad and my grandmom, to go eat. And I remember that some parts of my early years, I actually lived with my grandparents. And at the time, it seemed like it was because they wanted me to be closer to school. But I understand today that it was more a, you know, responsibility thing. It was my parents saying I would be better taken care of.
He started dancing at the age of 7. But when he became more mature, he then decided he'd actually like to make a profession out of this.
And at 16, I had decided that, you know what, I wanted to dance. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And there was nowhere to go in my community to get dance classes. So I would then catch a taxi and come to Johannesburg to come do classes on Saturdays. And in that way, my life was quite a bit of a struggle, in that inside, I know I've always been this creative person. But I went to a school where when I say the arts weren't offered as an option, I mean they were not offered at all.
As a child, you grow up looking up to people in the same career as the one you want to get into. So what Paul watched, read, and listened to influenced him.
I remember that they had Losha Kupa on the show, they had Somizi on the show. Sibusiso Radebe, who was an actor, then later became a dancer, was on the show. Really inspired me in as far as seeing that dancing could move beyond the spaces where I'd seen it.
Influence also came from home.
My grandfather was very inspirational. He was a self-made man. He was the sort of man that I would say was one of the strongest anchors that we had as a family. You know, we all sort of gravitated towards him as a male role model. My dad was highly inspirational.
Despite the challenges that he faced, he positively describes his childhood.
I would really describe, I think, my childhood as a very happy time for the big part, you know. I was a very loud child. I was rambunctious. I had a lot of energy. You know, I was that kid that would be waking up at night to entertain the elders during family festivities. But I think more than anything, you know, I was also a very confused child. You know, I struggled with a lot of identity issues, you know, because I suppose the way I saw myself inside was always different to the world that I lived in. You know, I grew up in a community where one would say there were no references of, you know, people that I would say lived the sort of life that I saw myself living.
Who is Paul outside dancing?
Paul outside of the dance space is a very complex personality. He's loud, he's vivacious still. He still likes having fun with his family and friends. You know, so I'm a lot of things. You know, I'm very pedantic as well at the same time. I'm passionate as well, you know. So my friends will tell you when I get into debates with them about politics or about life or which celebrity, you know, just can't get it, you know. I can be very passionate as well.
Paul realized that his community didn't have much resources to grow his passion, so he took it upon himself to work on his craft.
To do those classes at 16 was a turning point. At 18, when I got a scholarship in Denmark, that was my breakthrough. I decided to just go for one of the free classes because I was there as an exchange student. And out of that first class, I got called aside by this lady called Martha Gardner, who at the time I didn't know was the principal of this school called the Dancer Værksted Dance Foundation in Denmark. And she said to me who I was and what I was doing. I explained to her that I was in Denmark for a year for a cultural exchange program. And she said to me she could see that I love dancing. Is this something that I would like to do? And I said, yeah, you know, I love it. I suppose, you know, this is something I've always been passionate about.
Being an international star that he has become now, he explains how he has managed to stay grounded.
If you know who you are, if you know where you come from, because a lot of people in life end up somewhere without understanding where they come from. I think no matter where you end up in life, if you know where you come from, it will always ground you. Because of my family values, because of how I was raised by my granddad and my dad and, you know, my community, I still go into a world that offers me so much, but I'm unable to almost participate or to choose certain things by virtue of the fact that I still remember where I come from.
That scholarship to study dance in Denmark was just the beginning of great things for Paul, and he got a chance to make his mark on the world stage when he was given a Global Young Leaders Award by the US-based Global Young Leaders Council. But this was just the beginning. Stay tuned. After the ad break, we're back.
That goal was outstanding.
Made so much dust that I couldn't see and I hit a stone and we had a puncture.
Catch all these and more every day on Sports Live at 8:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back, you're watching Bophelong. In 1978, there was a film called Grease. In 1980, we all wanted to live forever like the cast of Fame. Came 1987, Patrick Swayze brought his game in Dirty Dancing. Fast forward to 2003, came Honey and then the Step Up franchise. These are just some of the dance films that inspired generations of dancers till today. But these are all American, and it made no sense that a dance-loving nation like South Africa had no dance film. This all changed thanks to the guys at Cold Stove Pictures, and of course, Paul was the obvious choreographer. This is the story of Hear Me Move.
As a professional dancer and choreographer, it is vital for him to take care of his body. This career may look easy, but it's not always fun and games. Paul explains what his day usually looks like.
My life is really interesting. If you told me when I was 17 or 15 that my life would be the way it is today, I would have laughed at you, because of the fact that I was always into routines. I was always into being disciplined and doing things systematically. And I don't think I've lost that. I hustle every day. That I hustle from the moment I wake up till the moment I sleep.
Paul's passion for dancing is obvious. When you put on music, he will break into dance, no matter the genre.
I've been very fortunate in that, I've been exposed to a lot of styles. I really have. I grew up in the hood where obviously I learned Kwaito, so that's always been in me, And then I went to Denmark and it threw me into ballet, contemporary jazz. It introduced these formal dance styles that I took on like a fish to water.
His versatility is the reason why he was appointed as head choreographer for Africa's first dance film, Hear Me Move.
I got the opportunity to choreograph South Africa's first dance film, and they were looking for a choreographer that had an influence or a flair of different styles, but at the same time somebody who could represent the bourgeois culture. And that was another challenge for me to say, geez, can you believe that I've gone all over the world, I've won world championships for doing jazz and classical work, and now I come back home and my first big task is to tell our story.
He explains how personal the film was to him.
Working on that film was rather daunting. It was exhilarating in more ways than one, but it was daunting in that this was the first for Africa, it was the first for South Africa. I knew as a young person who was inspired by film the power that film has. And I walked into it understanding the responsibility we had in telling the story in a way that would inspire and give hope to the next generation. But at the same time, encapsulate where South Africa is 20 years on, because we were trying to tell the story of what it means to be a young person who is trying to express themselves through dance 20 years into the new South Africa.
So it goes from
Buntle Modiselle, who plays lead female character on the film, describes her working relationship with Paul.
So I started working with Paul in 2013, and he introduced me to the world of cabaret. Now I understand that my dance background is hip-hop, dancehall, local, soulsport, jazz, and all of that, and Paul had seen me, and Paul really pretty much taught me that it's okay to be feminine. Most of my dance career, I proved, or the point for me to dance was to prove that I could dance like a guy, so I wanted to prove I could keep up with the boys. And then Paul taught me it's okay to be feminine.
She also explains how she found it easy to take direction from Paul.
Paul understands how to speak to someone and how to get the best out of someone. Because it's no use knowing what someone is capable of and not knowing what to do with it. So never mind my relationship with him, even if I had met him for the first time on set, I believe that everything that I gave on set, he would have been able to get out of me anyway, because that's the type of person that Paul is. Paul is very patient. But in his patience, Paul pushes you.
is not only inspiration to young kids that want to become dancers, but he has inspired professional young dancers too.
Paul's story inspires me in more ways than one. Number one, just the fact that he comes from extremely humble beginnings. Just let me know that regardless of where you're from and what your story is, what you decide today is what happens with you tomorrow. So the outcome of today or of tomorrow is what you decide to do today. And the fact that Paul is flourishing in an industry that is so difficult. This is not an easy industry to be in. And the fact that now Paul is teaching that to the kids in his community, you know. So, I mean, I taught a workshop, he was like, please come through, teach a workshop, and I taught it. I had such an amazing time there. And that's how selfless Paul is. His journey, his success is a selfless experience.
I think teaching would definitely be the thing that I would definitely be doing if I wasn't a dancer.
It's the first rehearsal and they have only 3 hours to learn before the client comes to watch and approve. And it seems like the client, Mr. Jones, is happy.
Apart from the fact that South Africans should support local films, I can assure you, you will be tapping your feet throughout watching Here Be Move. The dance talents of Bontle Modiselle, Nyaniso Dzedze and Mbuso Kharebe and the rest of the cast is absolutely world class. Stay tuned. After the ad break, we're back with more.
The governments of South Sudan and Sudan have confirmed their commitment to the cooperation agreement signed in September 2012.
As a panel, we are very pleased indeed with the position taken by both governments to implement whatever is outstanding.
About 100 bodies have been retrieved from a shipwreck off the coast of Libya. The boat carrying up to 200 migrants sank 1 kilometer from the Libyan coast.
In recent months, many boats have been wrecked as thousands of migrants, mainly from sub-Saharan Africa, have crowded into poorly made vessels in an effort to reach Italian shores.
That's PM News every day, 3 to 5:30 p.m.
Welcome back. By any measure, dancer Paul Mojaji is an international superstar whose list of achievements and awards is awe-inspiring. Martha Graham once said, "Dance is the hidden language of the soul." And well, Paul not only dances, but he's an entrepreneur and author whose other passion remains on Africa and on empowering young people.
Paul's dancing has made him achieve a lot as a young African leader. There are a lot of highlights in his life, but one recent one stands out.
But getting appointed, or rather being appointed the City of Tshwane Brand Ambassador, remains one of my personal biggest achievements, because no matter how big and how well you do out there, there's something about your own people saying well done to you.
He always knew he had the passion, but flourishing this way was never in his thoughts.
I've been so blessed. You know, when I got the Global Young Leadership Award, I thought it was like, I thought nothing could top that, you know? And then I went on to win world championships around the world. And once again, I was like, pinching myself, like, this is not happening.
Paul's mother always knew that Paul had it in him. She describes how Paul was as a child.
Most of the time, not like a group, ba practice at dance, babina.
Since there weren't many references in dancing, she, as a parent, didn't see this as a career.
I needed him to be something else, maybe like a teacher or something, but not a dancer. I feel great because le rena ka na kwa rona ne re sa itse gore motho ha dancer dance e ka ira gore e be a fitlhe go mafaseng a mangwe a explore.
His aunt also describes him as a child who always had rhythm.
Polo ha le monnye o na rata ho raloka haholo ene a rata ho bala mara ho ka nna wa ipata o bona bina mebino bo Michael Jackson a bina mebino o bona re motho o ona le thasello ya ho bina nako go ntse mo ha re ketlile ena na noshi o tlo wena o mo ratele fela o tlo bona re motho o na le bokgoni mara hore a le shainyana a ipata mara o bona re motho wa khona.
We are at Sebutuma Community Hall in Hammanskraal. This is basically where I teach music, dance and drama every Saturday to the next generation. So let's go check it out. Open to the side and feel into it. And stretch.
Paul is director of his own foundation called Dare to Dream, where he teaches and mentors.
I really hope that my foundation, the Leaders Who Dare to Dream Foundation, continues to produce future leaders that are going to be game changers in their own rights. You know, we finally, for the first year, have one child that's in university studying musical theatre, and it's a new thing for us. I mean, the foundation is 5 years old now, and we've done so many things. We've taken one child to Croatia to dance at the World Championships, and he actually won. And last year we took 3 of our beneficiaries to China on one of my professional projects as like part of that developmental program. You know, so they got the opportunity to work professionally with other professionals.
His childhood friend also describes him as that child who always loved to dance and entertain.
He's always been like a vibrant kid, you know, one of those old chacharach. You can't just put him down for 2 seconds and then I do this still. But other than that, he's always had ambition. That's one thing I love about him and I'll never forget. He's always had ambition. You know, the type of person who, you know, he knows that by this time I have to be la. You know those type of kids, whenever there's umcimbi or whatever, he'll be the first to just jump and dance at every single song. You couldn't exactly ask him to sit down for a second, never. So he was that type.
Paul says he still wants to achieve more and can only grow from where he already is now.
I look forward to creating more international opportunities. For myself, first and foremost, because as a choreographer, I feel the only way I can keep growing is to be challenged. So, you know, I look at awards like BETs and Grammys and I'm like, I want to be there, you know, I want to be creative directing those kind of shows. I want to be choreographing. So my scope in as far as dream for myself has gone from wanting to do stuff here at home and say, I appreciate the stuff here at home, but I'd like to also just embed that sort of international footprint.
His message is simple. If you dream it, you can achieve it.
I've always had dreams for myself, but life has surprised me in more ways than one. And that's why I have a sense of appreciation. I have a sense of feeling almost sometimes undeserving of some of the things the opportunities that I have found myself being presented with.
One of the most interesting challenges for me with choreographing this movie was opening myself up for collaborations, because you have to understand that you're looking at a dance genre that is forever.
Head choreographer of Africa's first dance film, Hear Me Move, City of Tshwane's first official brand ambassador, voted top 40 powerful men under 40 by Destiny magazine, a fellow for the United States government's Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders. Just a young man from a small village, now touring internationally because of the passion and the fire burning inside him. There's definitely nothing stopping Paul Mojaji.
I know for a fact that when I was a child, I grew up in a family where my parents didn't see it. And I don't blame them. In hindsight, I look back and I can say there weren't references. There weren't examples of people who had done it. But today, if you've got a child who wants to be a dancer, or you're a young person yourself, you want to dance, go for it. Because there's so many of us right now that have proven that you can do it and you can do it well. I represent a fraction of people in this country that are doing amazingly well. People in this country that are living. So don't fear, there's no reason. I think a lot of the parents used to be fearful that their kids wouldn't be financially stable, that their kids would not be able to make a living, as any parent wants the best for their child. My message is that the doors are open. We live in new and interesting times. It's taken me from a community that was this small, because now that I've got a global perspective of the world, I understand just how small my community is. And it's taken me into a world and allowed me to spread my wings in ways that figuratively I can't even begin to explain.
Dancing with the feet is one thing, but dancing with the heart is another. Thank you so very much, Paul, for sharing your story. Go out and follow your dreams, Mzansi, and let no one convince you otherwise. Until next week, from me, Refill Wemwilwa, join me again and the team on Bophelong.